You're on LocalnLive with Spaceman Africa. I am joined by two guests in the studio, Jeremy Smith and Jeff Shen, and they have a show in the upcoming Canberra Comedy Festival, which we're going to talk all about now. Welcome, guys.
Hey, Spaceman. How you going? Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
You are welcome. So, Canberra Comedy Festival has started this year. How's the build-up been? You've been out there promoting and any last-minute tweaks to the show?
I think there's always last-minute tweaks, isn't there, Jeff? Like, you know, you're always improving it. But, yeah, it's pretty intense, this leading up the first sort of quarter of the year in Canberra. I assume this is the same anywhere where you're doing comedy, like leading up to festivals, because there's lots of open mics, there's lots of shows, people are preparing work, and it's pretty exciting, but it's also pretty stressful, you know, like trying to... Because, you know, when you're doing a show, you really want it to be good. And in some cases, you don't know until you get there. I mean, you know, I sort of know the show will be good. I've got to say that.
Yep.
But you know, it's you certainly don't want to give people a crappy product, you know. And so yeah, it's pretty stressful, but it's a lot of fun. And you know, I always get pretty nervous, but you know, I guess if you're not getting nervous and you're not trying hard enough, I guess. So yeah, it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I think, and I think the great thing is the Canberra community. They all come out and show a lot of support, buying tickets, coming out to see, especially the local comedians. And I think the festival itself does a pretty good job in advertising. You know, when we drive past the bridges, you can see the flags. Normally, they put up flags of different sovereign countries, but the fact that they're willing to put up a bit of a joke Canberra Comedy Festival flag, that's something that shows overwhelming support from, you know, not only the community but the institution, the institute, the government itself. You know, they really promotes
it. It'd be a problem if they put it up at half-mast. That would be...
That's us bombing.
That's when you bomb, yeah.
Might put us up at a half-mast.
So I'll just mention to our audience, you guys are performing together, not the same show but on the same bill, at the Street Theatre tomorrow night, 15th of March from 9 p.m. And tickets are $25 from the Canberra Comedy Festival website, canberracomedyfestival.com.au. So, Jeff, you'll be performing first and then you, Jeremy. Is that how it will go?
Yeah, so I guess without divulging too much, the secret lineup of the show, there's going to be another special, let's call it guest/character, and then I will go in and warm up the crowd by making Jeremy looking good, by basically doing very bad myself, so that Jeremy looks relatively much
Jeff's
better.
Very good.
so yeah, I'll go in open for Jeremy, and then Jeremy will be doing his brand new 2025 solo show, comedy show for the festival.
Yeah. So yeah, Jeff's kindly supporting me. I'll do about 45 minutes. Jeff will do 10 minutes at the start, and then we've got a special character coming in for a little bit. And there's songs, there's video clips, Jeff doing his stand-up. It should be a lot of fun.
Variety of things, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think people really want that these days, you know, to see different bits and pieces. I think if I was talking at someone for an hour, they get pretty sick of it pretty quick. But it's a few different things, which is good.
Yeah, with people's concentration spans the way they are today, to have
that's
that
right.
variation. So, Jeremy, your show is called Immature. This is a new show from last year, correct?
So I did my first solo show last year. It was called Meander, and in this one, Immature, which actually it's I'm Mature, Spaceman.
Well, that's what I thought it was, but then in your promo, I think in a Instagram video, I thought I heard you say immature.
So you know, that's part of the gag. I bet it.
Okay.
I guess is that I sort of don't quite know what I am, whether I'm mature or whether I'm immature. I sort of pivot between both of those extremities. Probably more time towards the immature than I'm mature. But I guess the show talks about that, and I guess things that I've sort of done throughout my life that are looking back, some of them are pretty weird. Like I think I'm pretty weird, you know. But I think I've at least reached a point of maturity where I recognise that I'm weird and I'm okay. Like I'm okay with that, you know. Like I'm pretty odd.
You've embraced it and own it. And
I don't have much of a choice. I'm not changing it now, Spaceman. I can't.
It's too much effort.
I can't fix it. Yeah, that's right.
So in your promo material, you say you're trying to figure out where life went wrong. Is being a stand-up comedian where you've gone wrong, or is that the part where you've gone wrong, or what's happened there?
Yeah, look,
or is it somewhere else in life?
I think we've gone wrong in so many areas, so many. But I think, you know, often the mistakes I've made have been some of the best things I've done. You know, like that's been the things I've learnt. Like they say that you learn from your mistakes. That's not true, because I'd be a genius. Like, yeah, I've made so many. But I think some of the mistakes I've made in life are pretty good. And so, you know, things are always going wrong, but that's kind of okay. I think, like, that's, you know, I think we freak out about things going wrong, but that's pretty normal. And I think comedy for me, perhaps where comedy's wrong is I wish I'd have started it earlier. Like, I see these young punks out there doing comedy, like just much younger.
I
than
look
me.
young, but that's all.
Yeah, that's right.
That's all you have to be, as long as you look young.
But yeah, I wish I'd have started early. But I like the creativity of comedy, of music. You know, making something from nothing, I think it's pretty special. Like, it's pretty good. So I wish I'd have done this before. And I always say to people that, in Western society, you know, Australian Western society, artistic endeavours are never valued. You know, when I was growing up in Queensland, they're always sort of seen as like this fringe activity that's a bit weird, but it's a pretty integral part of what we do. You know, and my wife and I, we spent a couple of years up at the Torres Strait with Indigenous communities, and art is just what they do up there. Everyone does a bit of art, whether it's painting, whether it's sculpture, whether it's dancing, whether it's music. And in that community, art and creativity was just integrated, whereas ours, it seemed to be this thing on the outside. And I wished, you know, I had been exposed to a bit more art and creativity a bit earlier. And so that's what I do love about comedy. Yep.
And to be honest, I wish I started even earlier than when I did start.
Earlier,
I just
12,
think
Jeff.
before I learned to speak, that would have been even better. You know, I'll be a genius by now. But I just think it's such an interesting thing with comedy is like, because we as comedians, we have to think and write, and then that requires a lot of self-reflection, introspection. I ended up knowing myself better by doing comedy, like knowing who I am, what is my identity, what are my values. And honestly, I wouldn't think that I'd be the same person if I wasn't doing comedy. It's just like, it's really, it was expansion of my own mind whilst doing it. You know?
One of my questions is going to be, is stand-up comedy somewhat of a therapy session for you to get things off your chest, talk about things normally people wouldn't listen to, but on stage you could get away with it?
Yeah, I think there's definitely aspects of that. I think some people go and do comedy to try and do therapy. Yeah, for sure. I think it's been therapeutic for me. I think, coming back to what I said before, I think what's therapeutic for me is there's things that I talk about in my show that for a long time I thought was weird or wrong or unusual. It was frowned upon. But now I just think that's who I am. You know, it's like depression. I have depression, and I'm an introvert. You know, I talk about that in the show. I talk about having depression. I talk about having. I think I've got ADHD. I talk about things that would have been, frowned upon. Not frowned upon is not the right word, but things that are seen to be wrong. But they're not. They're just sort of part of who we are, and I think that's it's certainly therapeutic to be able to exploit those things that are seen to be weird or problematic for humour. It's great.
Yeah, look, to be honest, there's definitely some element of truth that doing comedy is therapy. I think one of the mindfulness exercise people do is to write daily journals, right? Because the writing helps you to express yourself, explore what's on your mind and let it go. And when we do comedy really well, people think we just come up with things on the spot. That is absolutely not true. Some are when it comes to crowd work, yes, but most of the material, and that's why we want to make sure it's good quality for the audience who are paying to see shows, that we've really tried and tested a lot of these things. We've written from scratch, and then you take it to the open mic scene to test it out, and then take it back home, do that iteration over and over to make sure it's really solid. So the whole writing process and the whole thinking process is seriously a form of therapy, at least personally for me.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
And so Jeremy, you said you came to comedy late, but how did you both, what motivated you to start in the first place?
For me, Spaceman, I think it was a bit like what I said before. I think I've always wanted to be creative, always loved music. Started playing guitar when I was in my 20s, and I've always liked that creativity, but there's never been an opportunity to use it, I guess. And so I always loved comedy, stand-up comedy, grew up watching it. And it was one of those things where you always want to do it, perhaps never really had an opportunity. And if I didn't go and do it, I would have been disappointed. I didn't have a crack at it. And so I went and did an open mic, and it was a lot of fun. As Jeff pointed out, the Canberra comedy community is really nice. They're a really good bunch of people. They're all a bit left of field, and they're all very supportive. And it was just one of those things that was always in the back of my mind. I wanted to have a crack, and when I did, I really enjoyed it. And it was. It was something I wanted to keep on doing.
Yeah, and for me, it was like a form of release because I was in a very demanding corporate job, worked a lot of numbers, very analytical, and I never got to use my creativity side. I never even thought I can be creative, to be honest, because I was stuck doing very analytical work. And for me, it was a form of release. And if I didn't do it, I just know later in life I will have regrets. And that is one thing I hate to have is having dying regrets later in life. And so these days when I make important life decisions, it's like, what is my path of least regret? And to me is have to do stand-up comedy.
Yeah. It's the same, I think.
Yeah.
Well, once again, Jeremy and Jeff are performing tomorrow night at the Street Theatre from 9 p.m. Tickets are $25. You can buy them online at the canberracomedyfestival.com.au. Jeremy is going to perform a comedy song for us here live in the studio. But while we're setting that up, we're going to go to a track. This is by a comedy duo called the Stevenson Experience. They're from Canberra. They're twin brothers. They have a show Saturday, 22nd of March at 6:30 at the Canberra Theatre Centre at the Courtyard Studio. So this track requires a language warning. And this is called Girls Who Broke My Heart.
We talked a bit before about how I'm single. And recently I've been thinking of dating a horse. Because I've been looking for a stable relationship for quite some time now. I thought that would fit the bill. Because I don't have a lot of luck with women. So this next song is about all of the girls that have left me in the past. It's very, very long. To the script, please. As long as I remember, I've been searching, looking everywhere for my whole life, my entire life, looking for something, looking everywhere. Now I think I've found it. Since I met you, deep inside you left me now. I don't know what I would do, 'cause I've been hurt. In the past, and I just hope we can make this last. First there was Sally and she had a lazy eye. We had to break up and she'd been seeing other guys. Then there was Samantha, and Samantha, she was blind. Said she had a vision of her future and she didn't see me in it. What? Then was the deaf girl Margaret, she dumped me by surprise. In retrospect it was my fault, I hadn't seen the signs. Then there was Tessa, and Tessa worked for Telstra, but we had to break it off because we didn't have a good connection. These are the girls who broke my, these are the girls who broke my, these are the girls who broke my heart. Then there was Alison, the double amputee. She left me because our relationship didn't have a leg to stand on. Then the mathematician Deborah, who said that I was too negative, and the culmination of complex factors meant we couldn't work it out. Steph the tailor didn't think we suited, and Kate the botanist said that we were rooted. Caitlin the baker, well, she was inbred, and Holly the insomniac just wasn't any good in bed with Venus the tennis player, I was always at fault, and Amy the taxi driver, she was just a bitch. These are the girls who broke my, these are the girls who broke my, these are the girls who broke my heart. Then there was Abby, and Abby was a vet, but she made me hate myself, she was always putting me down. Laura the scientist who said we had no chemistry, and when it came down to it, she didn't share that bond with me. I think I'm ionic and she was looking for covalent. Just not enough valence electrons to go around. Carol the architect said I had too many flaws, and Lisa the zoologist said she needed time for pause. Rawr. Rachel the pilot said we just couldn't fly, and Alex the gardener, she turned out to be a guy. These are the girls who broke my, these are the girls who broke my, please don't be the girl who breaks my heart. Oh.
2XXFM 98.3, people-powered radio in Canberra since 1976. Now in our 5th decade and still going strong with your support. Visit 2XXFM.org.au to listen online and find out how to subscribe, donate, sponsor, or become involved as a volunteer at your community station.
And you're listening to LocalnLive with Spaceman, and I have 2 guests in the studio with me, Jeremy Smith and Jeff Shen, who kindly come in today to talk about their comedy show. They have a comedy show in the Canberra Comedy Festival. They're performing tomorrow night at the Street Theatre from 9 p.m. Tickets can be bought online. And Jeremy is going to play a song on the guitar for us. What do you got, Jeremy?
So today, mate, I'm going to sing a song about bilbies, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. So I need to note that there's going to be people listening to this either now or in the future that are probably proper musos. I'm not a proper muso, yeah. Like I'm a bit of a hack, right? And so I apologise to anyone that I don't do this right. There are people who would be offended by this. But anyway, it's a song about bilbies. I was watching a show on TV about bilby conservation program. And I thought I'd write a song about bilbies, and so I did. It's it's probably all the explanation it needs. It's a bit of a hate-filled song about bilbies.
Okay.
Do you like bilbies, Spaceman?
I do, especially chocolate ones.
Yeah. What about you, Jeff? Do you like bilbies?
I like cute animals.
Yeah, cute. That's what people think.
And just a language warning on this, it's got a couple of swear words in it. So,
yeah, sorry about that.
But this is Jeremy Smith. Take it away.
Oh, how I love you, my little bilby. My long wiggling nose makes me feel so silly. You're small, furry, cute, and a little fat. Oh, how I love you, my long-nosed desert rat. But you need more, don't you, Jeff? Like you can't just rely on the way you look, can you? Like you need more substance, yeah. I don't know why we're obsessed with protecting bilbies. Got that shit rammed down our throats by tree-hugging hillbillies. Tell me that you like to make love. Apparently you don't do it enough. You gotta get your little furry bilby junk out and fuck those bilby bitches up. I don't mean no disrespect to you sexy lady bilbies. I'm just thinking about what needs to be done to save your species. Grab your bilby man by his little bilby willy. Have yourself a dirty, stanky, hot and sticky bilby quickie. The last time I checked, it was survival of the fittest and not Darwin's evolutionary theory of survival of the shittest. If you're sick of being attacked, get a bilby posse and hunt as a pack. You can all get yourself some kick-ass ninja skills and fuck up all those feral cats. You need to evolve bigger claws or sharper teeth. You need to become a bilby killing machine. But most of all, my beautiful bilbies, please. You gotta stop in a bunch of bilby pussies. You should be more like meerkats, helping each other out. There's always a meerkat appointed as a meerkat lookout. Bilbies are so selfish. Every bilby for himself, and now your selfish little biggie fuckers are expecting us to help you out. Lucky for you that you are so cute. I felt a compulsion to contribute. I bought myself an Easter bilby from the store. I took you home and devoured you, guts and all. We are obsessed with bilbies, and I don't know why. Those furry little cat food ball bags, they better evolve or they're all gonna die. That's my bilby song. Sorry, Billy Lovers out there.
Well, thank you very much, Jeremy. Woohoo! Woo! I've just recently acquired a Force track.
Oh, I thought we had a general crowd here. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for that. I'm looking at bilbies very differently now. All right. So once again, you're performing tomorrow night. There's many other local comedians that people should get out there and support. What's the local scene like?
Look, I think it's pretty good. You know, like I've only done little bits in other cities like Melbourne, a little bit in Sydney, a bit in Brisbane, did a bit in Perth. I think it seems pretty healthy. Like there's plenty of comedians, plenty of new comedians coming through. Some really good talent. Like Jeff and I have both been in the Raw comedy competition here in Canberra, have gone to the final, and I'm always amazed with the quality of the comedy that goes through Raw, which is essentially an amateur comedian competition. It's pretty impressive. And look, everyone's pretty supportive. I think I said before, everyone's a bit left of field. I think I've found a group of people that really gel with me. Yeah, they're great.
Yeah, and thankfully now there are enough venues and open mic rooms for us to do our thing. Look, I'm pretty sure years ago there were maybe like 3-4 a month, but these days we're clocking around even sometimes more than 10, 11, 12 a month. And having done some open mics elsewhere, like in Sydney, I think Canberra it's a lot more accessible for comedians to firstly get to the venue, and then secondly being able to get on the lineup. Because in Sydney, I've been to one time. First you got to travel. It's a hectic journey to get to places in Sydney, right? To begin with, and once you get there, sometimes you could be waiting for 3 hours to get up. Right? There's one time I went to an open mic show in Sydney, and I didn't get up till close to 1 a.m.
Wow.
And there was so many people, and the room runner in the end was just like, you know what? Everybody's no longer doing 5 minutes anymore. Everybody's doing 2 or 3 minutes, no more. So it's just the amount of people that's sort of giving stand-up comedy a go these days. It's just a lot. I think it's coming out of the woodworks, which is a good thing. People are trying.
I would love to see more Canberrans coming out seeing comedy. It'd be great, because as a comedian, you don't know if the stuff you're writing is good until you get that feedback from people, And I'd love to see more people out. And I get that trap of sort of spending too much time in front of the TV or too much time on my phone. It'd be good to see more punters out there having a look at some of the quality of the comedy out there. It'd be great.
Yeah.
So indeed, yes. So I encourage you all to get online and have a look. This is just to name a few: Chris Ryan, Chris Martin, Nick Starkey, Charlotte Curick, Laura Johnston, Tom Gibson, and the Women's Room, Trish Hurley, Tan Lasano, Jackie Richards, and of course Jeremy Smith and Jeff Shen, just to name a few. All right, lads, I'm interested in some interesting stories. You've, for example, Jeremy, you've said you've played with quite a. Where's this question I'm going to ask you? You've performed with some big names in Aussie comedy. Any memorable moments or stories you can share?
I was really lucky to do a support for Luke Heggie. He's one of my favourite comedians of all time. Last year, and that was a lot of fun. It was just it's always fun to watch professionals do what they do because they're just so good at it. Luke Heggie, I think, the crowd that would come to see Luke Heggie is a crowd that I think would come to see me, and so it was really nice to get exposed to a bunch of people that I think are the people that would like my comedy. So that was really neat. I got to do the gala last year, so I got to meet a lot of comedians that I've been watching for a long time. Like Jamal was there, having a whiskey with Jamal was pretty crazy, to think I was there doing that. What I did notice though, right, which was really interesting, like you asking about whether there's funny stories. Comedians are pretty passé, like they come across as pretty crazy, but in the end they're just professionals doing a job, and I'm sure there's plenty of comedians that have pretty wacky times out there, but it was whenever I've been around, the professional guys doing their job, it's not as crazy as I would have thought. It's but great people. They're really and it's good to see them watch what they do. They're pretty impressive.
One time I did a support role for Daniel Margleton, and it was actually at a new outdoor amphitheatre. And as you guys, I think as comedy goers know, outdoor stand-up comedy during 4 p.m. early arvo doesn't usually work. But we had MC Jenny Tian. She was able to get the crowd going, so that went well. And then because the outdoors started raining when Daniel Margleton got on, and but he powered through it. But halfway through that, rain got a little bit stronger. He had a student or someone in the audience there come up as a savior to have an umbrella, held it up for Daniel the whole time. But then, because that student was so starstruck by Daniel's stage presence, he was secretly recording Daniel doing stand-up whilst holding the umbrella for Daniel, and Daniel caught him in the act. And then obviously how experienced Daniel is, he was able to even get material out of that, someone secretly recording his show on stage with him. That was pretty crazy.
Under the guise of being helpful and holding up an umbrella for them.
Yeah.
And what about heckling? Is that something you guys have to deal with?
So I've dealt with that fairly early. So I'm in my third year stand-up comedy now. I think it was when I was 1.5 years into it. As you know, when you write comedy, when you do comedy, things evolve. Things evolve in the sense of you're writing different things, you're learning about yourself and how you think through audience feedback. And the toughest heckle I've ever got, I still remember this, I could never leave my memory. The indelible moment is getting booed, just by one person. But it's only because that person wasn't patient enough for me to get to the punchline, because the setup sounded really bad. The setup would be as if equivalent of if I said, "Oh, look, I really don't like Jeremy Smith because I love him." So, but the person couldn't wait till the punchline bit, and I just got booed. And once one boo resonate through the room, and just kills the room, kills the mood. So.
Yeah, I love you too, Jeff. Just to return that. Look, it doesn't really happen a lot. I find like heckling. There might be people who put forward, you can hear sort of people not liking stuff, or which does kill the room pretty quickly. But I haven't really, occasionally we'll have someone who's a bit drunk and a bit loud, and it's not heckling, but it's a distraction. Like what Dave Hughes had recently in the Fringe in Adelaide, where he had to ask people to leave because they were talking. It's just, and I think I imagine those professionals are much better at it, but I get distracted really easy. And so if there's somebody walking around or doing stuff, it can be really distracting, and I can lose my train of thought. But no, people don't tend to heckle, because I think it's probably the other way around. I think people perhaps avoid comedy because they're a bit scared of becoming brought
Being
into the show.
on,
And even that doesn't happen all that often. There's out of all the comedians I know, there's perhaps only a handful that would be good enough to be able to, I don't think anyone insults anyone, but most comedians are just doing their material. They aren't trying to find someone to pick on, and so that's probably the bigger thing, I think, is people perhaps avoid it because they're worried they're going to be exposed.
Yeah, I've been to a few gigs stand-up gigs where it's not allocated seating. You can sit where you want, and no one's sitting in the front.
Yeah.
They've clearly been to comedy before.
Well, actually, my girlfriend often she has that fear, and it's happened a few times. She's been in the front row and been picked on. We went to a Chris Marlton gig. We were third row, and he still picked her out in the third row. So I think now we just sit in the 10th row.
Yeah, because the third row was the first row because nobody sat in the first two rows.
Yeah.
Right? I only have a couple of things where I talk to the audience, but I'm not really talking to anyone. Like I am talking to someone expecting an answer, but I am trying to. It's not really directed at them. It's in some ways it doesn't really matter what they say. It's just a part of the bit, and so
You just need a way to set it up.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. Yep.
All right, one last question. If you could steal one comedian's talent for yourself, who would it be and why?
I'd steal Jeff's Chineseism. No, sorry, that's terrible. There was a guy who used to come to Canberra, Pat Doherty. He's from Sydney. Do you remember Pat? He used to come here during COVID.
Vaguely, yeah.
Anyway, Pat was a natural comedian. He was really tall. He was really good looking. He was very charismatic, and he was just naturally funny. I used to love watching Pat Doherty. I don't think for me it's quite as natural, and I'd love to have that sort of natural charisma on stage that Pat Doherty had. It was impressive. I've always been amazed with that. And I see other comedians like that, but Pat was one that I just used to love watching. He was genuinely a nice guy. Yep, I think that's what I like. I'd like to be a nicer person.
Look, I think for me, it's anybody. I would love to be able to do better, wittier crowd work. I think anyone who's able to pull that off is, in my opinion, quite amazing. It's a hard thing to do. Being able to create material on the spot from crowd work, I think, like something you can. I mean, comedians can practice, and just doing more and more, you'll surely get better. But there's some people who are just naturally good at it, and I would love to acquire that sort of prowess in doing it.
It does make a big difference to me.
And especially I think when like in open mic room, particularly when the room's a bit sort of the vibe's a bit off, you definitely need the crowd work to pick the vibe up. Even paid shows sometimes, when even yourself, if your material isn't landing very well, you're going to need just a little bit of crowd work to pick up the vibe and pick up the pace a bit more. So it's a very valuable skill to have in your toolbox as a comedian, I think.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, lads. Well, thanks very much for coming in today and telling us a bit of the inside workings of how to be a stand-up comedian. And once again, you've got your show tomorrow, Street Theatre. From 9 p.m, tickets $25. You get 2 comedians for $25. Cannot get better than that. Jeremy Smith and Jeff Shen. You can buy the tickets online, canberracomedyfestival.com.au. Thanks for coming in, guys.
Can I just say, Spaceman, thank you to the Street Theatre for supporting us. Thank you to the Canberra Comedy Festival for supporting us, and lots of local comedians. They do a great job of provide a pretty risk-free environment for us to get up and do our comedy. So, massive shout-out to the Canberra Comedy Festival people and to the Street Theatre for supporting a lot of us, and my show in particular.
And a reminder to our listeners, there's open mic nights running all the time, so get out there and support the local scene.
2XXFM 98.3, people-powered radio in Canberra since 1976. Now in our 5th decade and still going strong, with your support. Visit 2XXFM.org.au to listen online and find out how to subscribe, donate, sponsor or become involved as a volunteer at your community station.